The great assembly hall of the Galactic Council had never known true silence. For 3,000 years, the voices of 47 different species had filled this massive chamber with endless talk. They debated laws, made treaties, and argued about things that seemed important to beings who had ruled the stars for longer than humans had existed. The hall itself was beautiful beyond words. Crystal walls rose up toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Floating platforms held representatives from worlds scattered across the galaxy. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no solid form at all. They were the masters of known space, and they knew it. High Counselor Vethener stood at the central podium. He was a Tyranni, a species known for their 4 arms, and their belief that they were superior to most other beings. His scales shifted from blue to green as he spoke, which was normal for his kind when they felt confident. He was proposing new restrictions on hyperspace travel. It's a boring topic that had been discussed 100 times before. Then everything changed. Every alarm in the station began screaming at once. The beautiful holographic displays that decorated the walls flickered and died, replaced by warning symbols that flashed red and orange. Representatives jumped from their seats. Some screamed. Others tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. A ship had appeared out of nowhere. This should have been impossible. The Nexus station was protected by the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Sensors that could detect a single ship from light years away. Warning beacons that formed a net across space itself. Defense systems that had been built and improved over thousands of years. Nothing could approach without being seen. But this ship had done exactly that. It hung in space. Just outside the station's windows, close enough that everyone could see it clearly, it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Where Council ships were curved and elegant, this vessel was sharp and angular. Where their ships glowed with soft light, this one seemed to swallow light whole. Strange patterns moved across its dark hull. Geometric shapes that pulsed in rhythms that made observers feel uneasy. The ship was not large by warship standards, but something about it felt dangerous. It felt like a predator that had just walked into a room full of prey. Ambassador Crystal of the Vorn Collective rose slowly from her seat. She was an insectoid being with large, compound eyes that could see in many directions at once. Right now, all of those eyes were focused on the unknown vessel. Her mandibles clicked together nervously. "That ship matches nothing in our databases," she said. "The design is completely unknown. The materials appear to be unknown. Even the energy signature is something we have never recorded before." High Counselor Vethener forced himself to remain calm. He had led the Council through many crises. He would not show fear now. "Open a communication channel," he commanded. "Let us see who has come to visit us uninvited." The technicians worked quickly. Within moments, the main view screen activated. The face that appeared made several representatives gasp in shock. It was a human. The species was known to the Council. Of course, Earth had been discovered and cataloged 200 years ago. Humans had been classified as a pre-emergent species, meaning they had not yet developed the technology needed for interstellar travel. According to Council projections, they would not achieve hyperspace capability for another 500 years at minimum. They were considered primitive, emotional, ultimately unimportant. Yet here one was. The human was female. With skin the color of bronze and dark hair pulled back tightly from her face. She wore a uniform of deep blue with silver markings on the shoulders and chest. Her expression was calm, controlled, revealing nothing of what she might be thinking. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earth vessel Defiance," she said. Her voice was steady and clear. "We come in peace, but we will not be ignored any longer." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded the ship be destroyed immediately. Others called for security forces. A few simply sat in stunned silence, able to process what they were seeing. High Counselor Vethener raised all 4 of his arms, calling for order. It took several minutes, but eventually the noise died down enough for him to speak. "This is unprecedented," he said, looking directly at the human on the screen. "Your species has no authority to be here. You have violated countless laws simply by entering Council space. How did you even obtain hyperspace technology? It should be Centuries beyond your capability. Captain Morgan smiled slightly. It was not a friendly smile. High Counselor, humanity has never been very good at staying within the limits others set for us. When we learned that the galaxy had already decided our fate without asking us, we decided to do something about it. Vesener's scales shifted to a darker shade. What are you talking about? I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, but we can discuss that in person. I request permission to come aboard the station with a small delegation. We have much to share with the Council. The request caused another wave of arguments. Many representatives insisted it was too dangerous. The humans might be carrying weapons, diseases, or worse. But others pointed out that refusing might provoke the very conflict they hoped to avoid. The ship outside, whatever it was, had already proven it could bypass their defenses. Who knew what else it could do? In the end, High Counselor Vesener made the decision himself. You may come aboard, Captain Morgan, but you and your delegation will submit to security screening, and you will be accompanied by guards at all times. Acceptable, the human replied. We will dock at your main port in 15 minutes. Morgan out. The screen went dark. Vesener turned to face the assembled representatives. Many of them looked at him with expressions of fear, confusion, and anger. He understood their feelings. Everything they believed about the order of the galaxy had just been challenged by a single ship and a single human. Remain calm, he told them. We do not yet know what the humans want. Perhaps this can be resolved peacefully. Perhaps their appearance here is not the threat it seems to be. But even as he spoke, Vesener felt a cold certainty growing in his four hearts. He had studied humans as part of his early education. He knew about their history, their wars, their endless capacity for both creation and destruction. He knew that they were not a species that could be easily controlled or dismissed. Whatever was about to happen, the galaxy would never be the same. 15 minutes later, a small shuttle detached from the dark warship and made its way toward the station. Inside sat Captain Lisa Morgan, Commander Daniel Price, and Lieutenant Amy Santos. They carried no visible weapons. They wore simple uniforms. They looked ordinary, almost harmless, but they were about to shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The airlock doors opened with a hiss. Captain Morgan stepped onto the station, the first human ever to set foot in the heart of galactic power. She looked around at the alien guards, the floating platforms, the crystal walls, and the countless eyes watching her every move. She was not impressed. Take us to the council chamber, she said. We have a story to tell, and you are not going to like it. Captain Lisa Morgan walked through the corridors of the Nexus station with her head held high. Commander Daniel Price walked on her left side, his gray eyes scanning every corner for potential threats. Lieutenant Amy Santos walked on her right, clutching a small data tablet against her chest, like it contained the most precious thing in the universe. In a way, it did. The alien guards surrounded them on all sides. They were Tyranni soldiers, each one tall and strong with 4 arms that could easily crush a human skull. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their scales were dark red, the color of aggression and warning. Lisa ignored them completely. The corridors of the station were filled with beings who had come to watch the humans pass. Some stared with curiosity. Others looked at them with disgust, like they were insects that had crawled into a palace. A few seemed afraid, though they tried to hide it behind expressions of contempt. They do not look happy to see us, Daniel murmured quietly. They are about to be much less happy. Lisa replied. The doors to the great assembly hall opened before them. The chamber was even more impressive in person than it had appeared on the view screen. Thousands of representatives sat on their floating platforms, arranged in a massive spiral that rose up toward a ceiling of stars. At the center stood the main podium, where High Counselor Vesener waited with his 4 arms crossed. Lisa walked to the center of the chamber without hesitation. She stood directly below the podium, forcing the High Counselor to look down at her. It was meant to make her seem small and powerless. She did not feel small or powerless. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Captain Morgan, Vesener said. His tone was cold. You have asked to address this assembly. We have agreed to hear your words, but I warn you, our patience is limited. Explain your presence here, and explain it quickly. Lisa nodded. Thank you, High Counselor. I will be direct. Humanity did not come here to make friends. We came here to demand justice. A wave of muttering passed through the chamber. Several representatives laughed openly. The idea of a primitive species demanding anything from the council seemed absurd to them. Justice. Vethener's scales shifted to a mocking shade of why. Elo, justice for what exactly? Has the council wronged your little world in some way? Yes, Lisa said simply. It has. She turned to Amy, who activated the data tablet. A holographic projection appeared in the air above them, showing a beautiful planet of blue oceans and green continents. Earth. 8 billion people lived on that world. Families, children, dreamers, builders, artists, scientists, a whole civilization that had looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. 18 years ago, Lisa began, a vessel belonging to the Vorn Collective entered our solar system. They thought we would not notice. They thought we were too primitive to detect their presence. They were wrong. Ambassador Crystal shifted uncomfortably on her platform. Her compound eyes focused on the human with new intensity. The Vorn spent 6 months observing our planet, Lisa continued. They cataloged our cities, our technology, our culture, our military capabilities. They intercepted our communications and studied our languages. When they were finished, they left behind a network of surveillance probes hidden throughout our solar system. These probes were designed to monitor our development and report back to the Council. This is standard procedure for pre-emergent species, Crystal interrupted. There is nothing unusual or wrong about observation. I agree, Lisa said. Observation is not a crime. But what the Vorn did next was something very different. The holographic display changed, showing a document written in an alien script. Translation text appeared beside it. Converting the words into human language, this is the official report that the Vorn submitted to the Council. Following their observation of Earth, it recommends that humanity be placed under permanent quarantine. Not because we were a threat to anyone, not because we had done anything wrong, simply because we were considered too primitive, too emotional, and too unpredictable to be allowed into galactic society. Vethener waved one of his hands dismissively. Quarantine recommendations are common for young species. It protects both them and the rest of the galaxy during their development period. There is nothing sinister about it. Perhaps not, Lisa acknowledged. But let me show you what else we found. The display changed again. More documents appeared. Communications between high-ranking officials of 3 different species. The language was clinical and cold, like they were discussing the disposal of garbage rather than the fate of billions of living beings. Lisa read directly from the translation. The human species represents an unacceptable variable in long-term galactic stability projections. Their capacity for rapid technological advancement, combined with their documented history of violence and tribalism, creates a significant risk factor. Quarantine may prove insufficient. More permanent measures should be considered. The chamber had grown very quiet. More permanent measures, Lisa repeated. Do you understand what that means? 3 species on this council discuss the complete extermination of Earth. The murder of 8 billion people. Not because we threatened you, not because we attacked you, but because you were afraid of what we might become. Chaos erupted. Representatives shouted accusations and denials. Some demanded proof. Others called the humans liars. Ambassador Crystal rose from her platform and pointed at Lisa with a trembling appendage. These documents could be forgeries, fabrications designed to create division within the Council. They are not forgeries. Amy spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, but carried clearly through the chamber. Every document has been verified using 17 different authentication methods. The encryption signatures match Vorn diplomatic protocols exactly. The metadata confirms the dates and origins. These communications are real. Daniel stepped forward, his expression hard. We did not come here to lie. We came here because our species discovered that the galaxy had already decided to treat us as either prisoners or corpses. We built our own ships. We developed our own technology. And we came to face our accusers directly. High Counselor Vethaner had gone very still. His scales had turned a pale gray color that Lisa did not recognize. "Captain Morgan," he said slowly, "you claim that 3 species discussed these permanent measures. Which 3 species do you accuse?" Lisa met his gaze without blinking. "The Vorn Collective, who conducted the original observation and filed the quarantine recommendation. The Kreth Dominion, whose representative argued most strongly for immediate action. And the Tyranni Hegemony, whose leadership agreed to support any decision made by the others." The silence that followed was absolute. High Counselor Vethanor was Tyranni. He stood accused along with his entire species. "You accuse me," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I accuse your government," Lisa corrected. "Whether you personally were involved, I do not know. But someone in your leadership signed off on the potential genocide of my people. And we are here to ensure that the galaxy knows the truth." She let the words hang in the air for a long moment before continuing. "We do not want war. We never wanted war. But humanity will not simply disappear because it is convenient for you. We are here. We are capable of defending ourselves. And we will have justice, one way or another." The representative stared at her with a mixture of shock, fear, and something that might have been respect. A primitive species had not only achieved interstellar travel centuries ahead of schedule, but it also uncovered one of the darkest secrets in galactic history. Lisa. Morgan stood at the center of the most powerful assembly in the universe. Surrounded by beings who had ruled the stars since before her species discovered fire, she was not afraid of any of them. The great assembly hall had become a battleground of words. In the hours following Lisa Morgan's accusations, the chamber descended into arguments that made previous council debates look like friendly conversations. Representatives screamed at each other across the vast space. Alliances that had lasted for centuries cracked under the weight of suspicion and blame. High Counselor Vethaner had retreated to his private chambers, refusing to speak to anyone. Ambassador Crixtal remained in the hall, surrounded by Vorn security officers, desperately trying to defend her species against the growing tide of anger. The Kreth representative, a massive reptilian warlord named Drask, simply sat in his seat and glared at anyone who dared to look at him. Lisa and her small delegation had been moved to a secure room near the main chamber. They were told it was for their protection, but they all knew it was also to keep them contained. Guards stood outside the door at all times. "How long do you think they will take?" Amy asked, looking up from her data tablet. "As long as they need," Lisa replied. She was sitting in a chair by the window, watching the stars. "They cannot ignore what we showed them, but they also cannot accept it easily. The Council has believed itself to be the guardian of galactic civilization for thousands of years. Learning that some of its members planned genocide does not fit with that image." Daniel stood near the door, listening to the muffled sounds of argument from outside. "Some of them still think we are lying. I heard one of the guards say that humans are known for deception and manipulation." "Let them think what they want," Lisa said. "The evidence speaks for itself. They can verify every document, every communication, every piece of data we provided. When they do, they will have to face the truth." The door opened, and a small being entered. It was a Kalani, a species known for their luminescent tentacles and their obsession with knowledge. This one was old, its glow faded to a dim orange. A translator device hung around what might have been its neck. "I am Chief Archivist Moroth," the being said. "I have been assigned to verify the authenticity of your evidence. May I speak with you?" Lisa gestured to an empty chair. "Please, sit down. We have nothing to hide." Moroth settled into the chair, its tentacles wrapping around the armrests. "I must be honest with you, Captain Morgan. When I first saw your documents, I was certain they were forgeries. The implications were simply too terrible to be true. How could members of this council seriously discuss the extermination of an entire species? And now?" Lisa asked. Moroth was silent for a long moment. "I have spent the last 6 hours examining your evidence with every tool available to me. The encryption signatures are genuine. The communication pathways match known Vorn diplomatic channels. The metadata is consistent with the dates you claim. I have found no indication of tampering or fabrication. Amy leaned forward. So you believe us? I believe the evidence, Morith said carefully. Whether I believe your interpretation of that evidence is another matter. But I cannot deny that these documents are real. Someone in the Vorn Collective, the Kreth Dominion, and the Tyranni Hegemony did discuss what you described. The admission seemed to cost the old archivist something. His glow dimmed even further. I have served the Council for 400 years, he continued. I have witnessed wars, treaties, betrayals, and triumphs. But I have never seen anything like this. The idea that we might have destroyed your world, your people, your entire civilization, simply because you were different from us? ... He trailed off. Unable to finish the thought, Lisa stood up and walked over to the window. Archivist Morith, I want you to understand something. Humanity does not hate the Council. We do not hate the species that plotted against us. Hatred requires energy that we would rather spend on building a better future. She turned to face him. But we will not pretend that nothing happened. We will not accept being treated as inferior beings whose lives can be erased whenever it becomes convenient. We are here to demand our place in this galaxy as equals. Nothing more, nothing less. Morith studied her with ancient eyes. You speak of equality, but you arrived here in a warship. You bypassed all our defenses. You presented your evidence like weapons aimed at our hearts. Is this how equals behave? It is how survivors behave, Daniel said quietly. We learned that the galaxy considered us disposable. We had two choices: accept our fate or fight for our right to exist. We chose to fight. Would your species have done any differently? The archivist had no answer for that. The door opened again, and a Tyranni official entered. His scales were the purple color of formal authority. The Council has reached a preliminary decision. Captain Morgan and her delegation are summoned to the Assembly Hall immediately. Lisa nodded and straightened her uniform. Then let us not keep them waiting. The walk back to the chamber felt different than before. The corridors were empty now, and the guards who escorted them seemed less hostile. Word had spread about the verified evidence. The mood had shifted from denial to uncomfortable acceptance. When Lisa entered the assembly hall, she found a very different scene than she had left. Many platforms were empty, their representatives having left in protest or shame. The three accused species sat in isolation, surrounded by empty seats where their allies had once been. High Counselor Vethaner had returned to the podium, but he looked older somehow. His scales a dull gray that spoke of defeat. Elder Sorath, of the Metheny Consortium, stood at a secondary podium. He was a being made of living crystal, ancient and respected by all the remaining representatives. When he spoke, his voice rang through the chamber like bells. Captain Morgan, the Council has examined your evidence. Chief Archivist Morith has confirmed its authenticity. We accept that the documents you presented are genuine. A murmur passed through the chamber. This was the first official acknowledgement of the truth. However, Sorath continued, the Council must now determine how to respond to these revelations. The actions discussed in those documents were never carried out. Your world remains intact. Your people live. Some argue that no crime was actually committed. Lisa felt her anger rising but kept her voice calm. With respect, Elder Sorath, planning genocide is itself a crime. The fact that they failed to carry it out does not erase their intent. If someone plans to murder your family but is stopped before they can act, do you simply forgive them because no one died? A fair point, Sorath acknowledged. But the law is complex. We must balance justice against stability. If we punish these three species too harshly, we risk tearing the Council apart. If you punish them too lightly, Lisa replied, you send a message that planning the extinction of a species is acceptable as long as you do not succeed. How many other young worlds are out there, Elder? How many other species are being watched and judged right now? Will they receive justice, or will they simply disappear because no one spoke for them? The crystal being was silent for a long moment. Around the chamber, representatives exchanged glances. Some looked ashamed. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked afraid. Warlord Drask of the Kreth Dominion finally broke his silence. He rose from his platform, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber floor. "This is absurd," he growled. "We are being judged by primitives. Beings who were swinging clubs and living in caves while we built empires among the stars. Their words mean nothing. Their evidence means nothing. I demand that this farce end immediately." Lisa turned to face him directly. "Your evidence means everything, Warlord. Because while you were building your empire, we were learning. Learning to survive against all odds. Learning to adapt and overcome. Learning to face those who would destroy us and refuse to die." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You underestimated humanity. That was your first mistake. Coming here today was not our last resort. It was our opening move." The chamber fell silent as every being present wondered what that meant. The assembly hall hung in tense silence after Lisa's words. Warlord Drask stood frozen on his platform, his reptilian eyes fixed on the small human woman who had dared to challenge him. The other representatives watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Waiting to see what would happen next, Elder Sarath raised a crystalline hand. "Captain Morgan, your words suggest that you have more to reveal. If this is true, I ask that you do so now. The Council has had enough surprises for one day." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. She had been waiting for this moment since the Defiance first entered Council space. Everything that came before had been preparation. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. "Lieutenant Santos," she said calmly, "please activate the external sensors and display them on the main screen." Amy nodded and touched her data tablet. The massive view screen that dominated one wall of the chamber flickered to life. For a moment, it showed only the darkness of space, dotted with distant stars. Then the ships appeared. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation, merging from nothing like ghosts, becoming solid. One ship, then 5, then 10, then 20. They kept coming, filling the screen with angular shapes and dark holes. 37 vessels in total, ranging from fast attack craft to massive battleships, bristling with weapons. The Earth fleet had arrived. The chamber erupted into panic. Representatives screamed and ran for the exits. Guards drew their weapons and pointed them at the human delegation. Warning alarms blared throughout the station as defense systems tried to respond to the sudden threat, but Lisa stood perfectly still at the center of the chaos, her expression unchanged. "Please remain calm," she said, her voice somehow cutting through the noise. "These ships are not here to attack. They are here to ensure that our negotiations proceed fairly." High Counselor Vethaner gripped the podium with all 4 hands. His scales had turned a sickly white color. "You brought a war fleet to our doorstep. This is an act of aggression, an invasion." "It is neither," Lisa replied. "It is a demonstration. You see, High Counselor, when we discovered what the Council had planned for Earth, we knew that simply asking for justice would not be enough. We needed to show you that humanity is not a species that can be quietly disposed of." She gestured toward the screen where the human ships had formed a defensive perimeter around the station, not surrounding it aggressively, but positioned to intercept any attack that might come. The Earth fleet was built in secret over the past 12 years. We used technology reverse-engineered from the surveillance probes the Vorn left in our solar system. Combined with innovations of our own design, every ship you see was constructed in hidden facilities on the dark side of our moon and in the asteroid belt. Your observers never noticed because they only watched our planet's surface. Daniel stepped forward, addressing the shocked assembly. "We did not steal your technology. We studied it, understood it, and improved upon it. The hyperspace drives on our ships are 30% more efficient than anything currently used by Council vessels. Our weapon systems operate on principles your scientists have not yet discovered, and our shields can withstand firepower that would destroy any ship in your combined fleets." "Impossible," Ambassador Crystal whispered. "You are a pre-emergent species. You should not be capable of any of this. Your projections were based on the assumption that we would develop like every other species you have encountered," Lisa said. "But humanity is not like other species. When we face a challenge, we do not wait for someone to show us the solution. We create our own." Warlord Drask had recovered from his initial shock. His massive hands clenched into fists, and his voice rumbled like thunder. You threaten the Council with military force? This is exactly the kind of primitive aggression we warned about. You prove our assessment correct? No, Lisa said firmly. We proved that your assessment was incomplete. Yes, humanity is capable of great violence. Our history is filled with wars, conflicts, and terrible crimes against our own kind. We do not deny this. But we are also capable of great cooperation, great creativity, and great compassion. She turned slowly, addressing all the representatives who remained in the chamber. When we learned that the galaxy had written us off as dangerous savages, we had a choice. We could have built weapons and come here seeking revenge. We could have attacked your worlds, destroyed your fleets, and burned everything you built over thousands of years. With the technology we developed, we might have succeeded. Her voice softened slightly, but that is not what we chose. Instead, we built a fleet that could defend our home and came here to talk. We want peace, Council members. We want to join your civilization to learn from you and share what we have learned. We want to prove that your fears about humanity were wrong. If we refuse, Elder Sarath asked quietly. If the Council decides that your presence here is too great a threat, Lisa met his gaze steadily. Then we will leave. We will return to our own solar system and build our own civilization among the stars. We will explore, expand, and grow without your permission or approval. And eventually, you will have to deal with us as equals anyway, because we will not stop advancing. She paused before adding, but I hope it does not come to that. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders. There is room for all of us if we can learn to trust each other. The silence that followed was different from the silence of shock or fear. It was the silence of beings who were thinking deeply about everything they had believed and everything they had just learned. Chief. Archivist Morath spoke from his place near the wall. Captain Morgan, I have a question. Your technology is clearly advanced, but building a fleet of this size requires enormous resources. How did humanity accomplish this without depleting your world's economy? Lisa smiled. It was a genuine smile this time, touched with pride. We worked together. For the first time in our history, all the nations of Earth united behind a common goal. We set aside our differences, pooled our resources, and focused on a single purpose, ensuring our survival. The fleet you see represents the combined effort of 8 billion people working toward the same dream. United. Crystal sounded disbelieving. Your species was at constant war with itself for your entire recorded history. How could you possibly achieve unity? Fear is a powerful motivator, Daniel answered. When we discovered that the galaxy considered us expendable, our internal conflicts suddenly seemed very small. We realized that we could either destroy each other or face the universe together. We chose togetherness, Amy added. It was not easy. There were years of difficult negotiations, compromises, and sacrifices. Many people gave up things they valued so that future generations would have a chance to reach the stars. But we did it, and here we are. High Counselor Vethener had remained silent throughout this exchange. Now he slowly descended from the podium and walked toward Lisa. His guards moved to stop him, but he waved them away. He stopped directly in front of the human captain. They stood face to face. The leader of the most powerful political body in the galaxy, and a representative of a species that had been considered insignificant just hours ago. I reviewed the documents you presented, Vethener said quietly, so that only Lisa and those nearby could hear. I found my own signature on some of them. I did not remember signing them at the time. It was a routine matter, passed through my office among hundreds of other items. I approved the potential destruction of your world without even truly considering what I was doing. Lisa said nothing. She simply waited. I am sorry, Vethener said. The words seemed to cost him something. Not because you have ships pointed at this station. Not because my position on the council is now ruined. I am sorry because you deserved better. Your species deserved the chance to prove itself, and I helped deny you that chance. It was possibly the first time a High Counselor had ever apologized to anyone. The representatives who heard it would remember this moment for the rest of their lives. Lisa nodded slowly. Thank you, High Counselor. That means more than you might realize. Now, shall we discuss what comes next? The negotiations took 3 months. Every day brought new arguments, new proposals, and new complications. Representatives who had never agreed on anything found themselves working together to address the human situation. Old alliances shifted. New partnerships formed. The political landscape of the galaxy changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Lisa. Morgan spent most of those months in meeting rooms, surrounded by beings who viewed her species with emotions ranging from curiosity to resentment. She answered the same questions hundreds of times. She explained humanity's history, culture, technology, and hopes for the future. She listened to concerns, addressed objections, and slowly built bridges across the vast gulf between Earth and the stars. Daniel Price worked with councils, military officers, to establish protocols for the human fleet. There were tense moments when ships from different species came too close to each other, but no weapons were fired. The Earth vessels maintained their defensive position throughout the negotiations, a silent reminder that humanity could not be pushed around. Amy Santos became an unofficial ambassador, spending her days meeting with representatives from species that had nothing to do with the original conspiracy. She discovered that many of them were genuinely interested in learning about Earth and its people. Some had even watched human television broadcasts that had leaked into space over the decades. They had strange ideas about humanity based on old entertainment programs, but at least they were willing to talk. The 3 accused species faced their own reckoning. The Kreth Dominion refused to accept any blame and withdrew from the council entirely. Warlord Drask declared that his people wanted nothing to do with an organization that would take the side of primitives over their own members. The Kreth ships left the station on the 37th day, heading back toward their distant worlds with promises of future consequences. The Vorn Collective took a different approach. Ambassador Crixtal admitted that her government had acted wrongly and offered formal apologies to both humanity and the Council. The Vorn agreed to pay reparations and to open their observation archives to independent review. Many on the Council considered this sufficient, though Lisa noticed that Crixtal never looked directly at her again. The Tirani hegemony presented the most complicated case. High Counselor Vethener resigned from his position on the first day of negotiations, accepting responsibility for his role in the conspiracy. His successor, a younger Tirani named Korith, worked hard to distance the hegemony from its previous leadership. New elections were called. Reforms were promised. It would take years to know if these changes were real or just for show. On the 93rd day, Elder Sarath called a special session of the Assembly Hall. All remaining council representatives were required to attend. The human delegation stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by thousands of alien eyes. "We have reached a decision," Sarath announced, his crystalline voice echoing through the hall. "After extensive deliberation, review of evidence. In consideration of all perspectives, the Galactic Council hereby recognizes humanity as a legitimate spacefaring civilization with all the rights and responsibilities that's to do." Entails. A wave of murmuring passed through the assembly. Some voices sounded pleased, others sounded concerned, but none objected openly. Furthermore, Sarath continued, the Council offers Earth's provisional membership in our organization. This membership will last for a probationary period of 50 standard cycles. During this time, humanity will have observer status and limited voting rights. Full membership will be granted at the end of the probationary period, assuming all conditions are met. Lisa stepped forward. The people of Earth accept these terms. We are honored to join the community of galactic civilizations and look forward to building a future of cooperation and mutual respect. The formalities continued for another hour. Documents were signed. Protocols were established. A human embassy would be built on the Nexus station. Council observers would be allowed to visit Earth. Trade agreements would be negotiated. Military coordination would be discussed. There were 1,000 details to work out. It would take years to address them all. But the most important thing had already happened. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. That evening, Lisa stood alone on the observation deck of the Defiance. The ship had remained docked at the station throughout the negotiations, its crew maintaining constant readiness in case things went wrong. Now, for the first time in months, she allowed herself to relax. The door opened behind her. Daniel entered, carrying 2 glasses filled with amber liquid. "Bourbon," he said, handing her one. "I have been saving it for a special occasion." Lisa took the glass and smiled. "I think this qualifies." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars through the viewport. The Nexus station glittered nearby, its crystal structures catching the light of a dozen distant suns. Human shuttles moved back and forth between the station and the fleet, carrying diplomats, scientists, and curious explorers eager to learn about their new neighbors. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Daniel asked after a while. "Coming here like this, demanding our place at the table?" Lisa considered the question carefully. "I think we did what we had to do. The galaxy was not going to invite us. They had already decided we were not worth the trouble. We had to make them see us differently. Some of them still hate us. The Kreth will probably be a problem for generations." "Probably," Lisa agreed. "But some of them respect us now, and others are genuinely curious about what we might accomplish. That is more than we had before." The door opened again, and Amy entered. She looked tired but happy, her data tablet tucked under her arm as always. "I just received a message from Earth," she said. "The Secretary General wants to congratulate us personally. The whole planet has been watching the broadcasts. People are celebrating in the streets." Lisa nodded. "Tell her I will call her in an hour. I need a moment to process everything first." Amy smiled and left them alone. Daniel raised his glass. To humanity," Lisa echoed. They drank together as the stars wheeled slowly past outside. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited to be explored. New species waited to be met. New challenges waited to be overcome. Humanity had spent thousands of years looking up at the night sky and wondering what was out there. Now they knew. The universe was vast, complex, and sometimes hostile, but it was also full of possibilities. The journey was just beginning. 3 years later, the first human colony ship launched toward a distant star system. It carried 10,000 volunteers who had chosen to leave Earth behind and start a new life on an alien world. The Council watched with a mixture of amazement and nervousness as these ambitious primates spread outward into the galaxy. 5 years after that, human scientists working alongside Kalani, researchers made a breakthrough in energy generation that benefited every civilization in the Council. The technology was freely shared, because humanity had decided that cooperation would serve them better than competition. 10 years after the Defiance first appeared before the Council, humanity was no longer considered a probationary member. They had earned their place through hard work, dedication, and endless capacity for surprising those who thought they knew what humans were capable of. Lisa Morgan had retired by then. She lived in a small house on the coast of what used to be called California, watching the waves and remembering the day she had stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and refused to be afraid. Sometimes visitors came to ask her about those historic events. She always told them the same thing. We did not save humanity by being stronger than the galaxy. We saved ourselves by being stubborn enough to believe we deserved a chance. And when they tried to deny us that chance, we took it anyway. The stars were no longer mysterious lights in the sky. They were destinations, neighbors, and home to a species that had once been dismissed as insignificant. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.